Hey everybody, Doug here from 2 Plus Tough, starting off a night of just hanging out and painting and stuff, and I hope you'll join me. So nothing really special in the itinerary. I'm going to kind of talk about some thoughts I've had on Slaanesh with the new Wrath and Rapture box coming out. But other than that, mostly it's me sitting here. I have a bunch of, actually we'll just transition into some stuff here. I have a whole bunch of gore from Beasts of Chaos that I'll be working on. And by golly, I hope you enjoy. Let me turn my volume down, make sure I don't have any audio feedback. If you are populating the channel, joining the live stream, just let me know you can hear me and that everything audio sounds okay, just so I know. I'll keep an eye on that for the first few minutes, just to make sure everything goes well with these. As I drag out my paints, I hope that you will join me, and I want to put it out there really, really early that we are having a storm here just outside Seattle, and so I might lose power. If I do, that's cool. You know, you can check me out on Instagram, whatever. And I'll put a memo up there if power does go out. So while I'm getting my brushes out here, let's see here, let you know kind of what I'm working on. I'll just chat about it. So I picked up a whole bunch of Beasts of Chaos stuff. I army hop quite a bit, but this time I decided I really wanted to focus on something that complemented my Chaos Undivided. And so, Beasts of Chaos are a fantastic way to do that. And so, because they have the battalions that allow you to pretty much do whatever you want to do, you can give them a Chaos mark and they can be part of a different army. Which is neato torpedo. Let's see here. Oh crap, I'm dropping everything. Okay. And we're getting on my paint palette. Basically, I've also been recording these kind of in batches because I'm putting all of the painting progress that I did on this army into one Uber video to kind of talk about how I do speed painting. And so that's kind of a fun thing that's been going on, is getting into painting tutorials. Not super in-depth ones. I do not view myself as an artist when it comes to this stuff. But yeah, so we're going to be doing quite a bit of that. And so we are just grabbing our paint brushes here. I see some people... Kenzie and Jack, hello, hello. If either one of you could tell me if everything sounds and looks okay, that would be awesome. I see some questions popping up in the chat. I'll get to them in just 1 second. Let me just grab my brushes out here so we can just jump in. Okay. Okay. All right, sounds good. Awesome. Thea Adams, I have a lot of my local GW community stopped playing Sigmar the summer after the summer died down, yeah, and Nova Open happened. They all play Lord of the Rings in 40K. What do I do? I love Sigmar. It's hard to find pickup games. Well, Theo, let me ask you this. Are you in the Nova area? I'm kind of curious because just out of curiosity, I was actually looking to book flights to go to the Nova Open today. But I had a few questions I sent into the customer service before I did. I just want to get some more information for travel plans and things like that. I'm curious. As far as what I would do, man, it's tough. I understand. And it just knocks the wind out of your sails when no one's able to get a game with you or no one's interested in. So I don't have a whole lot of advice. I would mainly say if you have two painted armies, if someone's interested in playing 40K Lord of the Rings, say, hey, I'll play that with you if you wouldn't mind playing something else with me later on. Kind of do like a, I scratch your back, you scratch mine type thing. But that would be my suggestion to you. I did the same thing with War Machine back in the day. Like I was trying to get people to play War Machine, but they all wanted to play 40K back in the dark ages when 40K wasn't, or GW wasn't the company it is now. And the chat is filling up. Sweet. Okay. Let's see. I'm just going to start painting here. Hope everyone... Actually, that's the wrong brush. Let's see here. I'll take just a minute and crack out some questions, and I'm going to hop into some theory crafted about Slaanesh here. Corey asked what's going on. Did Nagash win? Honestly, we don't know yet. It's kind of a cliffhanger. We know he didn't win because that'd be silly to call Age of Sigmar if it was Nagash. I'll talk about my beast herd in just a second, Kenzie. Bunch of people pouring in. Awesome. Cool. I always love when the live chats kind of get up and going. Sometimes it's kind of awkward when it's just like, I don't know. Let's see here. So a lot of lore questions asking about what's going on currently in the lore. The last thing that we had go on in the lore was Soul Wars the book was the last narrative driving thing that we've had for a while. And at the end of that, Nagash did not win. His ultimate plan for kind of killing everyone and turning everyone undead kind of fell apart because Skaven screwed it up. And what else happened? Sigmar caught wind of it. They sent a bunch of Stormcast down. Honestly, I'm not quite sure. To be super honest with you, Corey, not quite sure what's happening right now. We kind of had the big release, and then things that kind of immediately went silent. The only thing that really came after that in a big way was the Beast of Chaos book. So I don't know. We're kind of in this lull state right now. They kind of have a big release for Age of AOS, and then since then it's been about 40k, which deserves their time in the sun for sure. And they've had it for quite a while. I do think that in January and February it's going to go back over to AOS. So I'm hoping to know more then. But that's honestly the only other answers I can give you is that Nagash didn't win. Sigmar has a good idea what's going on now. Nagash did forever change the way the magic in the realms works. Like, he fundamentally changed it. That's why we have things called endless spells. That's pretty much it. Let's see here. Theo, yes, you are in Virginia. Sweet. Yes, I'm planning on going to Nova tentatively as long as the travel plans out, and that will actually be my first convention. I'm going to make a big stinking deal of it because I want to meet everybody. The only person I know around here who I met through watching the channel was Jack, and he's okay. He's whatever. Got to dip my toe in new waters. Some questions pouring in about Bloodscraters. Yep, you can. But the abilities don't stack, just like Jack said. Nova is in it's the last week of August, going into September 1st, like that last weekend. But yeah. The reason I want to go there is because, one, it just seems like a lot of fun. But also, it's they have a really big narrative campaign element, which is more my jam, because it's one of those things, if I was to go to Adepticon or something like that, there's a lot of things going on at Adepticon that have nothing to do with my hobby. They're just, it's a board and miniature game, thing like that. There's a lot of D&D stuff and stuff that I'm glad exists, but not interested in. And so if I'm going to pick one, I want it to be one that I can just dive in and get people pumped about. And I don't know. The Nova, whenever I hear people talk about the Nova Open, they just have nothing but great things to say about it. And actually, one of the guys who runs it, actually bought a mat off me, one of the gaming mats. And so we got to chat a little bit, but that was a year ago. But yeah, it might be cool to go there and see if I can help promote it and stuff like that. Certainly do live stream and junk from there. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, big narrative campaign over there is super legit looking. One year, I don't know if it was every year, but one year they did big boats, and so it was a naval battle. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Jack, Jess, and I are both planning on going because her one stipulation was wherever I go, she has to be able to come to, which is exciting. Bring her, I don't know, just bringing those parts of my world together. Yeah, so actually, good point. Mr. Lowell asking what I'm doing tonight. Now that I have some people watching, what I'm working on is a unit of 20 gores from the Beast of Chaos book as an expansion to my Slaves to Darkness. They can be allies together, and I like Chaos Undivided. And Brent locally was getting out of them, and so I picked up his stuff. I haven't picked it all up yet. But yeah, I've actually got a good solid, I think like 1,400 points total when it's all together. Between the stuff that I bought and then also the stuff I'm getting from him. And yeah, you should see them. We have a Beast of Chaos player, like Mark has Warherd, but he doesn't like the other stuff, like Gores on Gores, Beastmen, that kind of thing. And so I hope to have kind of a more fleshed out, I don't know, I like all of it. I like all of it together. So if one thing is more viable or whatever like that, kind of digging into that. So it's going to be kind of a variety army. And with an emphasis on being fun. So the color scheme, I put a picture of, so I cracked open the Battle Tome and I took a picture of one of the color schemes in it. And I actually took that picture down because people weren't understanding what I did. They thought I painted it. And they're like, oh, how'd you do this? I was like, no, I don't want to be taking credit for some other artist. Basically, if you look in the Battle Tome for Beast of Chaos, there is a Great Fray, which is kind of like their version of Stormhost or whatever, called the Gave Spawn. And I talked about these during the Beast of Chaos week, where they really worship the idea of change. And the way that plays out in the tabletop, they have more mutations than anyone else, and they're kind of wild and super crazy. The way that plays on the tabletop is that every time a hero from this army dies, this is not part of a battalion, it's just an army-wide rule if you take Beast of Chaos. Every time a hero dies, roll a die, and on a 2-up, it becomes a spawn. Now, for those of you who don't know me and my obsession with Chaos Undivided, becoming a spawn is like my favorite thing. I just think it's the coolest thing. I don't know why. I just, ever since I got started in the game forever ago doing the original Path of Glory, where it was just Chaos, like only Chaos armies could play, or particularly Warriors of Chaos back in Fantasy Battles. Like the idea of Spawndom just really stuck with me as being like, that is so unique and so fun. And so when I saw those rules, I was like, oh, this has to happen. And so, yeah, that's exactly the paint scheme I'm going for, is the Gave Spawn. And then if you look, that picture that I shared was a quote-unquote high-ish Realm of Light Beastman, where it looks really similar to the Gave Spawn variant, but he has like a teal tabard. I don't know if the camera will pick it up here, but kind of it's a really like bluish green, kind of lighter color, which is contrast. It's kind of a cold, cool color, which contrasts well with the warmer skin tones and fur and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it will look pretty saucy on the tabletop when it's all done. I decided, because their skin is so pale, not to go with the white, which is the kind of signature thing about my Slaves to Darkness. It just didn't look... I tried one and I was like, nothing about it pops because it doesn't have that contrast, so that is okay. They'll still look really good. They still have all the Slaves to Darkness have the pale skin, just like the Gave Spawn do. And so that will look super good. So what basically the way you do the skin to make it look so pale is my favorite skin method, which is Rakarth Flesh. Then you do a wash of Riken Flesh Shade, and then just highlight, if you will, quote unquote, anything but recess areas with Riken Flesh again. And you can do more highlights with Pallid Witch Flesh, but I've had terrible luck with that paint. You ever have paints where you just have terrible luck with them? I feel like Rakarth Flesh I had the best experiences with, and then Pallid Witch Flesh, it just always comes out chalky, and a lot of times it's too bright. Like, you'll see them do tutorials with it, and it just doesn't look the same when I paint it. It looks terrible. My Dark Oath War Queen is that way. Like, she looks ghost white just because I put a little bit of Pallid Witch Flesh on her, and like, I don't like this at all. So eventually I will likely replace her with another model. Let's see here. Anyway, so that's the way to answer your question. That's what I'm working on. A bunch of Gores, which I know are probably not the most, well, they're certainly not the most beloved unit in that army, but they're so iconic. I love them. Plus, I'm not going to like have these on the shelf and then go out and buy a bunch of Ungor just to be more points efficient. I don't care. When I think Beastman, I think Gore. And the cool thing about painting Gore is that if I ever want to take the Khorne battalion and bring them in a Khorne army, that battalion does not allow Ungor. Because I think just because they don't want you to get the blood for the blood god bonus on something so cheap. So it's their way of disincentivizing you from doing that. You can bring them as allies, but that's not fun. But in this way, yeah. So this way, if I take the Khorne one, I still have meet the battle line requirements and all that stuff. So that is what I am doing. Okay, I'm gonna hop in the chat here for a quick sec and answer some questions because I see they're pouring in. And then we're going to start talking about what I want to see on Slaanesh based on what we see in the General's Handbook and general trends we saw with, well, I don't know, the way their other Chaos God books came out. So let's take a look here. Okay, not that far behind. Are there any famous people play Age of Sigmar on the East Coast? I don't know where most of our community lives. I'm pretty transparent about living in the Pacific Northwest, but other folks are kind of more reserved by giving out personal information. No idea. Master Alaric says I got my daughter's Arcane box set. That's awesome. My buddy Ben did the same thing, and I'm so happy for him. It's a killer set. If you play that army or want to get into it, there's like legitimately no better way than do that. Blurby Bugger, I like that name. What do you think of a hybrid Grail/Blood Knight faction with the return of Abarash and the Gills? You're probably going into some lore I'm not really familiar with, but I heard Blood Knights and that sounds fun. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I'm sure you're referencing something in the old lore and I just don't know a ton about the old world. I got out of the game, so I say I got out of the game. I played when I was like 13, and then at that point I wasn't mature enough to really appreciate the lore. Came back about a year and a half before AOS started, so I was there for the entire end times, and in that time I spent most of my book reading up on elves and things like that. So I don't have a full understanding of old world lore, but it sounds super cool. Let's see here. Maybe I should hold a camera up to waddle to the camera. I'll try to find a way to do that. Actually, eventually what I want to do is have a third camera that's like down where I'm painting. And so this way I can like pause and just put it right there. Because the problem is with this, the camera has trouble focusing if it's not quite right. Let's see here. Demonettes have Catechism of Murder baseline. It's a solid buff to damage output. Yep. Kenzie. Oh, I'm jumping around on me. I do like Gabe Spawn, Khorne Beastman. Yeah, dude. They're super cool. Theo says, your narrative tip videos help me a lot. Are you ever going to continue the series? I am actually. This coming week, I have a video coming out about doing narrative missions. And so we're going to talk about just the tons of tools that are in the General's Handbook that people forget that is there, including myself. As I'm going to write campaign missions here pretty soon, I'm digging into that toolbox. I'm going to show you exactly how I'm doing the things that I'm doing. So yes, focusing less on army building and more on like how do we curate a game where we tell a story. So yeah. Let's see here. Got a bunch of people. Jack, do you think any other old world Skaven special characters we brought back since Thankful is still around? I don't know. And I honestly, part of me wishes, as much as I like Thankful as a character, part of me wishes they would just be like Grey Seer on a Clan Molder Gargant or something like that. Give it a generic name. And just give them rules. I don't know. I don't know. I'm one of those people, I'm not super into named characters. Like I like creating my own story, but I understand why named characters exist and why they're important. But then you get stuff where it's like Vandus, where it's just like, okay, so let's say they make they bring back Thankful, they're going to have him be the spotlight for like 2 months, and then you're just never going to hear about him again, which is a bummer. As far as other ones, I'd like to. I mean, the thing is that we haven't really seen the true power of the Great Horned Rat. We get hints of it in the Pestilence book, as we talked about during the Pestilence week, but we don't get a full picture because they only worship a part of him. But I'm curious, like, what about the Greyseers, like the actual wizards and that? Like, what horrific things do they worship about the Great Horned Rat? Like, is he going to bring back his sorcerers? Like, that's where Thankful would belong, I think. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you like having named characters, or do you prefer to make your own and keep those in the old world? Let's see here. Oh, here we go. Blurby, he's cloning me on his Oh, let me get caught up. I don't want to forget anyone here. Kenzie says, "Hey, my corn guy's secondary color is silver. Followers of the Silver Stag." I like that. That sounds kind of cool. Are you excited about the harp lore? Super looking forward to Slaanesh lore advancement. Me too. Yeah, I don't have. Uh-oh, my video output is going weird. For whatever reason, my computer just kind of had glitched out and was like, "Your stream is dying. You have no internet connection," but we're just fine. Anyway, so I'm getting caught back up. Timothy Reed, "Hey Doug, hobby ADD is real. This week I've painted a Sepulchral Guard and some Plague Bearers. Yeah, man, it's nuts. I kind of trade armies like some people breathe. That's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean." Okay. All right, so let's hop into talking about my thoughts on Slaanesh. So yeah, so if you don't know, I'll kind of recapitulate here just because I don't know who all is watching. But realistically, I started not liking Slaanesh many years ago, and what I've learned as I've grown older is that I actually really like Slaanesh. What I don't like is some Slaanesh fans, and the reason I say that, because some people like to just focus on the one kind of sexual aspect, which is definitely there and definitely prevalent, thanks to the sculpts and lore that GW leaned into in the past. But with the bringing of the book Fulgrim, they really did change quite a bit in terms of what it means to be devoted to excess and all this stuff like that. And that's where I started to like Slaanesh, was that singular novel kind of changed my entire perspective on the deity itself. And there was a lot of rumors that Slaanesh was going away. They put him on ice, so to speak, when AOS dropped. And I honestly do believe that there was some part of that was like, we just don't know what to do with him. You know what I mean? Like, what do we do with this as far as do we keep leaning into the sexual direction? Do we need to give it time to reset? And I think it's exactly what they did, and I think they did it successfully. I'm now at a point where I'm super pumped for the Slaanesh release, and I think it can definitely be one of the more engaging characters. So, lore-wise, Slaanesh has been imprisoned by technically by 4 of the Elven gods. So you have Teclis, Tyrion, Malarian, from the Dark Elves, who was Malekith, and then his mom, Marathi, is helping. So there's 4 Elven characters keeping him bound. And so diving into the Slaanesh discussion, I should say. As far as my thoughts on why Slaanesh is going to come back, I think it makes perfect sense for the Necroquake that Nagash set in motion. If you read the book Soul Wars by Josh Reynolds, I believe it was Josh Reynolds. I could be wrong, but I believe it was. The sheer power of that wave going out, basically Nagash to the Necroquake, and it's just like a a ripple effect going through reality. The sheer power of that just messed things up. And so we saw he basically obliterated where Stormcaster reforged back in Azir. And I think that certainly has the power to shake a prison for Slaanesh loose. And that she would bust out of there. So that's kind of... I mean, that's one of many ways that Slaanesh can come out. Interesting. Okay, reading some stuff in the comments. But yeah, so I think that's kind of my choice of like if I was given the option to write how Slaanesh came in, I think that would definitely be it. Beyond that, I'm trying to think. There's a few other reasons that were postulated by the guys over Warhammer Weekly, but I can't recall them right now, actually. Let me see. Get my X paint. Give me 1 second. I need Zendry Dust. We're going to do the bone colors next. Okay. And then as far as like how it's been represented so far, the rules in the General's Handbook have been interesting. I will say interesting. And the reason I say interesting instead of like good or bad, whatever like that, is because they succeeded in one thing that I think is really important when it comes to having a new faction. And this, for Slaanesh, this is being something totally different, right? When you look at the faction rules that we got for like Free Peoples or Slaves to Darkness or Iron, all those things that were in that book, Slaanesh was very unique in the sense that if you don't know, when you play Slaanesh, you get to pick between one of three factions. There's the Seekers, the Pretenders, and something else. And what these are, they're all followers of Slaanesh, but they have different goals and things like that. And so Pretenders might be like, oh, Slaanesh is gone, but we need to have someone else in charge. Seekers are actively seeking where Slaanesh is, and they represent all these things in very different ways. And so it's very, very cool. Very, very flavorful, I would say. That when your god is missing, like, people received that and responded to that in very different ways. And that those different ways are not only like, oh, Seekers, Pretenders, Invaders. Thank you, Kenzie. That those different ways are expressed in the game. And that's something I've touched on. I try to touch on quite a bit on the channel as far as like, you know, we have this narrative of gods that walk among men. And what does it look like when your god walks among men, that kind of stuff. And that's exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about, where it's like, your god's gone. You know what I mean? I think Fire Slayer stuff is something very similar. Because it's cool and unique. Anyway. So yeah, that's how they've been expressing, I would say, those rules for some time. And let me... Got my GHB near me. Let me see. Let's pull it up. Yeah, there we go. Let's take a look at them. There we go. I'm just going to set it off to the side there and I'll take a look at it. But basically what they do is the Pretenders will have different leaders who pretend to be the rightful heirs of Slaanesh's throne. And the way that has kind of played itself on the table is you get, what is it? Pretenders has 2 different command traits rather than only one. And they kind of buff out larger units of melee troops. So the idea is being as like someone trying to pretend that they're so freaking awesome and to represent how great they think they are, and they actually are pretty good. You get an extra command trait, which can be super legit, as Jack has shown us on rerolling ones. Seekers, where people were actively trying to chase down where Slaanesh is locating, which if you didn't know is kind of somewhere between the realms of light and shadow, kind of in a weird prison state in between the two of them. And the effects of Marathi pulling out souls for Daughters of Cain has actually tilted that, so Slaanesh is already in an unstable environment ready to be loosed upon the realms, because of that. And that one is basically it increases speed and mobility. The downside to being part of the Seekers is that you lose control of your army. So basically, if they can charge something, they have to charge it, which is a pretty big detriment. I do want to try it someday. I think when I get enough models to have the Beast of Chaos Slaanesh battalion, which actually I have enough models to do it. I just need to actually get them all ready and painted on rerolling ones. But I do want to try it because the idea of that much speed just sounds fun. And I mean, and honestly, who doesn't want to just charge into everything they see? I think it just sounds fun. Competitive? Not at all. It requires so much effort on model placement that it's not super great. Like you would have to be thoughtful about positioning your models so that you wouldn't be forced to do charges you weren't ready to do. But it sounds like something that would reward a savvy player. And the last one is the Invaders, which I'm not really sure what that's trying to represent. There's not really a blurb about that one. But basically they can have up to 3 generals, and they're all vying for power, basically. And so you can have 3 generals that all do their command abilities and that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's kind of cool. As far as how that... I'll put this book away because it's kind of cramping my scene here. As far as how that has played out on the tabletop, I think it's great. I think it's incredibly flavorful to our guard's missing. These are the ways people respond, and being able to engage with those responses on the tabletop is super, super legit. And it kind of creates, it's kind of interesting because if you have an army and you're trying to build lore for them, I don't think any other faction, especially ones we got in the General's Handbook, capture the way that they perceive the world and the important things around them, the way that allows you to do. And I think that's kind of cool. So we're talking about the new one. Now, the reason I kind of went down a little memory lane is to talk about what I'd like to see coming forward. And honestly, I think even if Slaanesh came back, right, which I mean, I have zero doubt at this point that that's going to happen. I don't want them to lose that special thing. By that I mean, they're so unique right now. I would hate for them to just become just like every other faction where here's your set list of abilities and that kind of stuff. No, don't do that. The god came back, and I want them to continue the different responses. Oh yeah, you're people who are incredibly loyal, and we spent forever searching for you. We're glad you're back. And those might be the loyalists. And then there's some who maybe something is different about Slaanesh since all the souls got ripped out of them. They don't see him that way. It's oh, you're not Slaanesh. We're looking for the true god. And so maybe they're I don't know, some kind of zealot that's looking for what they think is something different. I don't know, that kind of stuff. I want them to kind of continue the idea of different responses to how a race functions when its god is missing. Because I just find that to be such a fascinating idea, and no one else does it quite like Slaanesh, which I have probably said 4 times by now. So yeah, I want them to keep those things. As far as the the actual rules themselves, they're kind of strange. So the one that forces you to charge but gives you incredible speed, I think has some game, provided that you have ways of mitigating. Maybe if you could more debuffs to keep your opponent from moving in certain places. So this way you can kind of control. It became more of a control army rather than just a speed one, because you already have enough speed. I think that could be super cool. That's probably the biggest one. The other ones, it just depends if they just copy and paste some command traits and abilities, because it's kind of what it thrives on. As far as do I think that they're going to get new models right about that, obviously they're getting new models. They're getting the demons, but I mean, some people have been asking do you think they're going to release Mortal Slaanesh with them? Kind of like the Nurgle has Rotbringers and junk. I have no clue. I'm not privy to that information, but privy, that's what I meant to say. But I'd like to. I think Slaanesh, there is almost no mortal Slaanesh line. I'll just be honest about that. It's almost non-existent. Let's see here. There's a lot more skeletal bits on these guys than I was expecting. These guys are kind of like orcs, like for 40k, in the sense that like once you start painting them, you realize there's a lot more detail here than you would think, especially for being a horde unit. But yeah, so I in general I like the way that their base concept for rules works right now, and I want to see that translated into something that's new and refreshing when the actual book comes out. I think that's definitely important. Part of that plays into the summoning mechanic as well. One thing I was actually talking about with the rerolling ones guys is that I'm actually not aggravated. That is the wrong word, but I'm full with apathy about the way that summoning works for Beasts of Chaos, where you have to like burn some gore on the pyre, and then you'll be able to like get points to summon things. Because the thing is that I don't feel like it adds anything to the world, to the mechanics of the army. I really don't. It's not unique enough that you can lean heavy into it and have a huge summoning army coming on the board. Nothing like that. But the reason I say that is because when you think about Slaanesh and the way it integrates demons, that right now one of the pivotal things about Slaanesh is the way that the monsters can be summoned. If you don't know, with Slaanesh right now, excuse me, hiccups are killing me. Every time you have a Slaanesh hero who deals a wound without killing a model, or takes a wound without being killed, you gain a depravity point, I believe is what it's called. And the thing is that I want that mechanic expanded a bit, because I want that to be a super unique thing and have ways to make heroes amazing. Like I'd love it. I don't want every army to be like Hero Hammer, where it's just a bunch of heroes with super awesome artifacts running around. But if that's going to be your thing, like lean into it. And yeah, I don't know. I just think that they need to keep offering something super unique. I want their summoning mechanic to be unique and continue to be that way. And so I guess kind of my thoughts, as people have asked me about, I don't just want a new army for the sake of having a new army. What I want is something that adds a new dimension to the army, or to the game, I'm sorry. So having a super highly mobile army that allows you to play the faction based on how that faction in the lore views its god is incredibly unique. I don't want to lose that. And the depravity system for heroes and things like that, it is ultimately very unique compared to the way that other chaos gods interact with their summoning points. We'll call them all summoning points for the sake, whether it's contagion points for Nurgle or whatever, blood type points for Khorne. They offer something that is so wholly unique, and I would hate for them to lose that. Oh man, so many little skulls. I didn't realize that these gore units, like half the skulls on them are like from Ungor, just the smaller dudes. I love it. Yeah, so as far as the lore that came out in the new box, I don't actually, GW didn't send me a new box of Wrath and Rapture, which I was actually super bummed about. I'm not going to lie. I was super bummed about that. Not because it's just free stuff, because when I jumped into receiving stuff from them to do content on, it was right like in their 40k cycle, so I got a bunch of orcs and Blackstone Fortress, which is all great stuff and I'm thankful for, but it's not stuff that I like use a lot. Whereas I'm like, no, I want something AOS-y. It's all I talk about all day. And so that was something that was a little more AOS-y, and I missed it, and I was like, bummer. But that's okay. I'll catch them next time. They've been good to me. Let's see. Paint a little skull here. I am going to take just a moment here and hop in the chat and see what y'all are saying about my thoughts on Oh, is that Bustis Boots? Boot? I don't know how you say your name. Listening to Fulgrim, don't go Slaanesh. So if you don't know, like Fulgrim is a Warhammer Horus Heresy, so 30k book that depicts a legion of noble space marines falling to a god of excess and all stuff like that. And what I will say is I think that was an extremely important work, not because the book is amazing. There's some pretty slow parts to that novel, I'll be honest with you. As far as like a literary critique. The thing why Fulgrim was a really important book for Slaanesh's development, like in the real world, like how that character exists within the Games Workshop IP, is because it showed us a vision of Slaanesh that wasn't necessarily tied to sex. It showed us a vision of these are good, honorable people that fall in very different ways. And like there's artists and there's warriors and all different kinds of people. And how the idea of excess and obsession corrupts even the best and brightest of us. And so, like, it's not everyone's cup of tea. I loved it. But I also like weird horror stuff like that. I mean, there are just some scenes in that book where you're like, oh no. It's pretty great. Like when, was it Fulgrim walks in and there's like two people stabbed to a stone sculpture, and he's just like, I have no idea what's going on in that room, but we know the story behind those people, and I was like, oh no. It's good stuff. You got to be into it though. I don't think I listened to the audio version. I don't listen to many audiobooks, but it's pretty great. Let's see here. Okay, we got a few people talking about Horus Heresy. Sandy McDonald's first live chat experience. Well, you're not missing much. We're just sitting and chatting. A few people popping back in to ask me what I'm doing. I started a Beast of Chaos army, and so I'm painting my first unit of Gores, and I'm having a blast with them. They're fun little models. You know that? They're... I'm more excited to paint Best of Gores, to be honest with you. I think, well, one, they're far more effective in the game, but more importantly, I like the armor they have. And so I'm pretty excited to paint that all up. Let's see here. I'll give it a second here. Go ahead and pop in the chat. If you have a question for me, do me a favor, write question in all caps, and then I'll respond to it. Just because I get kind of buried in people chatting with each other, which is awesome. Super encourage it. Helps me kind of stay on track. So the main topic here for tonight is just chatting general thoughts about Slaanesh. I'm very stream of conscience. I'm just mainly painting. But I find that having a theme for the night kind of helps. So again, if you have a question for me, you want to chime in or ask the group something, write question in all caps, and we will hop on that. And also, if I don't get to it, you can just copy and paste it again, and I'll see it next time. Couple of bones here. My paint scheme for these guys, I am building them in a way that is super generic, so I can take all of the God-specific battalions, because I am interested in taking the Slaanesh battalion, as well as the Tzeentch one, because the Tzeentch one lets you unbind everything. Or, like, every unit becomes gains the ability to unbind a spell if they're within, like, 9 inches of the person casting it, which is cool. Okay. Pretentification. Question, do you think it's likely we will get some Slaangors? We kind of got some Pest Cores in that Blood Bowl kit. I think it is highly unlikely that they're going to do that. Maybe in the future? I mean, everything's possible at some point. I'm sure when they do, it's going to be like a big, oh crap, it's a call out to the past. But the Blood Bowl specific ones is because they are redoing all the specific teams. I feel like if they were going to do specific Gores, they would have released it with the Beast of Chaos book. I feel that way. I don't know for sure, but I feel like that would have been the default, you know. But they've also gotten themselves in a pretty good position where they can just kind of release one-off things here and there, and people will go nuts about it. Bob Jones. Have you taken a look at the new rules for Slaanesh? What's your opinion on them? I have not taken a deep dive in the look. I heard people talking about them, like on the gentleman at Warhammer Weekly. I don't know a ton about them. I know the harp is pretty cool. I'm gonna be super self-aware. I'm not one of those people that can like look at rules and kind of like put together how that works in a tabletop. I'm someone who learns by doing, and so I kind of like have to like play it, fail with it, and be like, oh, okay, so that thing's not a brutal assault unit because I read it and I thought it was, that kind of thing. That's my learning style for these types of deals. I do know people were really jazzed about there's like minuses to hit or something like that against the fiends, and they're really excited about that. So I'm super pumped. Let's see here, I missed a question. Drow, I believe I pronounced that. As I don't have an army and more a mix of minis, I was wondering how many points you would recommend starting playing in stores. The best thing I can offer you is if you go into a store on a game night, or if they have a Facebook group locally, whatever, and just literally just like saying exactly what we just said. Hey, I just have a mix of miniatures. There was a couple guys who did that like last year. Like he just kind of threw together a random order army. I don't even know if it was legal. It's fine. Nobody cares. Just for learning the game. And just asking people what you can do. That's my biggest thing, is just show up on a game night, or try to get an announcement in advance to be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And just kind of go from there. See what makes sense as far as like where to purchase with that. I do recommend, as Master Alaric also said, 500 points is a really good baseline, just because it's enough to have different types of models. You can get some unit variety in there around 500 points. That's what most start collecting boxes. They're like between 5 and 650-ish. So if someone just started as well, you can play your stuff and they can have a start collecting box and probably have a pretty good game. Yeah. Have you talked about what models you think Hope will get? Have you talked about what models you think / hope to get from the hopeful release? As far as Slaanesh goes, I don't think much more is coming out for Slaanesh right now. I think we're going to have kind of a situation we did with Maggotkin of Nurgle. If you don't remember, Maggotkin of Nurgle, the game Blight War came out with a bunch of cool rules and new stuff for Nurgle. And then like 4 months later, the actual book came out, which doubled down on a few of those things, gave us some cool new interactions. I think that's pretty much exactly what's going to happen here. I think we're going to get Wrath and Rapture, and then in a couple months we'll get an actual Slaanesh book. I don't even know what color I'm going for right now. Okay, we'll do the tabards here. Let's see. As far as my thoughts on those models, the harp is incredible stuff. Fiends, I'm not the biggest fan of the Fiends. Just, I don't know why. I don't know a really good answer for you. The corn stuff looks great. Karanak is amazing. I love him. Hashtag my dog. Good boy. Let's see here. Question. How are you going with orcs in 40k? So, funny thing about orcs in 40k. If you haven't been following, 2 days ago I released a video saying I was giving away the orcs. Basically, if you don't know, there's a podcast called Independent Characters, which is an amazing 40k podcast. Well, they put a thing out on their Facebook page, or they have like a Facebook group community thing, that the fires that are going down in North California wiped out the collections of many of their gamer friends and people they know and care about. And they put the call out if anyone could donate stuff. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really know why, but it just really weighed on me that I have such a plethora of stuff. I don't play 40k a whole lot, and I wanted to contribute because I've seen so many of these types of things happen before, and I wasn't in a point in my life to contribute to them, and so I gave away just about 2,000 points of an orc army, just to help someone in need. They have a list of players. I do recommend you go check it out. Watch that video. It's the one that says, like, let's change someone's life. It's me talking about how radical generosity does help people in their greatest time of need. So anyway, in short, I don't have the orcs anymore, but it had less to do with me being hobby ADD and more to do with just generally wanting to help someone. I've been the survivor of 2 house fires, and I don't know. I know what it's like, and starting over sucks. So I wanted to pay that forward. A lot of the orc stuff I got was donated to me very kindly by people who were like, hey, maybe you'll like this. And so I just decided to pay it forward, that kind of stuff. So that's what's happening with the orcs. I do have, we had like a local swap meet here, and I picked up 2 of the Forge Bane halves of Necrons. They're unassembled, still on sprue. Some guy wanted to get rid of those things for $40 for 2 of them, and I was like, that is a 1,000-point army, like right there. It's a battalion, like almost. So I picked those up. I was actually originally picking them up to sell them, and then I had that moment where I was like, really wanted to participate with the independent characters, and so I guess technically I'm a Necron player, although it's in Word only. I don't have any models built for it. Which I'm okay with, because honestly, I wasn't playing a lot of 40k towards the end. After I threw my back out, I wasn't playing a ton of games, period. And when I was really enjoying Kill Team more than 40k. And so I'm very excited to play lots of Kill Team, and I'll get the Necrons painted. I mean, they're going to paint super easy and very quickly. So yeah, that is what's up with the orcs. They're not up. Stanley McDonald, did you hear the interview with Jess Goodwin? It is on my queue. I am so behind on all my podcasts. I am also a true crime fan, and so I'm so far behind. I do want to hear it though, because Jess Goodwin is somebody I highly respect. My local store, it will have a 750-point game event with a $20 entrance fee for 3 2-hour games. That sounds fun. As long as they put that money back into like prize support and like having a good experience, that sounds like a heck of a deal. I would do that. Master Spookums, do you think the predator species could fit in the 40k? I mean, technically yes. I think they used to have something. I'm almost 100% positive they borrowed so many IPs to create some of the species they have. I'm sure there was a predator one back in the day. Maybe that's what Kroot are, because Kroot are hunters. Right, that's all a predator is a hunter from Interplanetary Hunter. Let's see here. Justin, oh, Doug is a silly man. Let them down easy. Yes. So Justin is a local who we often joke about how I trade armies. I feel like doing the Pacific Rim thing with the reset the clock, but instead of a clock, it's just like an egg timer on my wall. Okay, a lot of questions pouring in here. Sam Cook, when you played War Machine, what army? I was mainly Trollbloods, some Menoth, coming into Tzeentch and Beast and Thousand Suns Chaos. Yeah, dude. When I played War Machine and Hordes, I started off with War Machine doing Sigmar, which is the blue army, and shooty. Their studio scheme is heavily blue. Very shooty. And then I realized I wanted to do more big monsters, so I switched to a Hordes army, which was called Scorn. And I played both of those things competitively. I did mostly Sigmar when I was playing competitively. I was not always the lore nerd that I am now. I really, for some reason, the rules for War Machine and Horde just clicked so much easier to me when it came to playing competitively. I think it's because they have maybe a smaller roster of models, and just interactions didn't seem so overwhelming to find the right pairing and stuff like that. So those are my 2 armies. But then I got tired of being the only one with a painted army and stopped playing. Let's see here. Kandakar Hassan, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Was Marathi worshipping Slaanesh retconned, or was that always part of her character in the old world? As far as I know, nothing was retconned. She did worship Slaanesh in the old world. She was super corrupt and mean and evil. She got what she deserved by Slaanesh consuming her, and is super angry and bitter. And as far as I know, that's still there. Question. This can be to anyone. Can individuals dedicate themselves to two chaos gods, like gods that get along, get dual gifts of mutation and things like that? I think at a certain point, you do have to pick one. The thing is that you could also be like Archeon, who receives blessings from multiple chaos gods because he's so amazing. They're trying to tempt him to join them. So like Nurgle will be like, hey, take this set of demons to go with you, this cohort of demons, and then maybe I can, bribe you to be more favorable to me and my cause and that kind of stuff. So like you can receive blessings from a god, but I think the reason he can do that is because he refuses to dedicate himself. He makes himself a commodity that they need to pay for. So to literally answer your question, no, I don't think you can dedicate yourself to more than one. However, as an asterisk, I think you can receive the blessings of more than one by playing the game that Archeon does, which is a very dangerous game indeed. Which is why he's such a cool character and why Slaves of Darkness should have the ever-chosen keyword. But that's none of my business. Bob Jones, lore on the harp. When she plays the harp, it aligns Slaanesh realm with the mortal realm so demons can enter more easily. Hence the one depravity point in your hero face. That's fantastic. What a cool thing. Another like, I mean, in a sense, that's kind of what the Bloodsecrator does, right? And the Bloodsecrator paints the banner, the realm of Khorne and the mortal realms kind of merge for a split second, and it becomes hell on earth. Very similar concept, but I absolutely love that stuff. Kind of tears open that barrier in between worlds. I dig it. Let's see here. Question: How did Tzeentch broke his staff before? Master Spookums, I don't think I understand the question about Tzeentch breaking his staff. I'm glad you're enjoying the lore videos, though. Yes, nailed that name. I love it. Okay. Question: Is there a reason why there are models for Marathi and Nagash, but not for Gorka, Mork, or any other Chaos gods? Well, Marathi is an easy one because she's not a god. It's pretty clear, pretty well stated in the lore that her goal is to ascend to godhood, but she herself is not one. So that's kind of one that I think it's a different category. Far more understandable. Now, the thing about Nagash, I'm not quite sure. I'm going to level with you. And the reason I say that is because it made more sense in the old world where he was not a god, but like he was just a dude. He was a super powerful arch necromancer guy. And it made sense that he could be walking among us. Now it gets a little rough. And this is kind of one of the reasons I don't like... Not that I don't... I want to say that back. I almost said why I don't like Slaanesh, why I don't like Nagash, but that's not true. I love Nagash. The thing is, like, I wish that there was like a true apocalypse level games where you could bring gods on the table, and that because I think that having him there but Sigmar not kind of, it doesn't depreciate Sigmar at all. But it's hard to reconcile. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want all the gods there or none of them. Because Alariel's another one. Alariel's the god of life. How come she's represented but not Gorka Morka? So I don't really have a good answer as to why they chose him. I think model line-wise it makes more sense in the old world, but not so much here. All of them, Kinsey, are still sort of rooted in their human aspects. I mean, Alariel's mad about things that happened when she was an elf back in the day. Way back in the day. But, I don't know. It's tough because we read so much about these deities that like I'd love for them to all be on the tabletop, but I think when they're on the tabletop, kind of like how they've talked about not just rushing to do Primarchs in 40k, where it's like, we want these characters to be mythic and not just jam them into the narrative. Because that would cheapen them. And that would be lame. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't mind it. I don't mind him being present in books. It's just the tabletop. He's so. He's either. The problem with gods in the tabletop is that they're either not nearly as powerful as they ought to be according to their lore, or they're so powerful they're no fun to play against in the game. And I think that's kind of the Nagash problem right now. Where he's ball busting, you know what I mean? Like, he defines a game in their list, in their army. That's awesome, he should. Not always the most fun thing to play against. Let's see. Brian Swan. I've heard people say Nagash can send aspects of himself to places. That's true, so it might not be a god level Nagash. That is true. Nagash does have many names because he does appear and take different forms across realms. So that's a great way of not justifying, but explaining that. Master Spookums, I've heard that Tzeentch was at one point the strongest of the four, then his staff was broken. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say you're wrong. I didn't hear about the staff breaking. I do know that all four of them kind of rotate power. They all vie. It's called the Great Game. They all vie for control and stuff like that. Khorne is traditionally the one who's on top the most because there's always bloodshed happening. I do know that, like, was it last year in January when they did Zen? Was it January, something like that? I don't know what they called it, but they did play it up that Tzeentch at that point was numero uno, and that was cool. I like when they kind of play that stuff up a little bit. Question: can elves dedicate themselves to a different chaos god to escape Slaanesh? We have zero information about what elves can do inside the belly of Slaanesh. From right now, it seems like they have no sentience while they're in there, so I wouldn't imagine so. Question: Doug, is there any record or lore of the 40k and AOS Warhammer Fantasy Battle universes being connected through the realm of chaos? There was like books forever ago. Actually, we take that back. I don't know what edition it was. There was a time when you could have a Space Marine go back and through the realm of chaos and show up and like shoot a Bretonnian. I don't remember when that was. I wasn't playing then, but it was at one point very possible. It's actually something fun to look at. I should go check that out. Love your lore videos, by the way. I check them out and they make me appreciate pretty much my army. Yep, I like them. They're super fun. I enjoy doing lore videos more than anything else. Question: is the Great Maw still alive or died? How did he die? We don't quite know. It seems it's been mentioned before when people are talking about the Gutbusters, the ogres, but I have not seen a whole lot on it. Unfortunately, most of the stuff from the old world they just haven't touched on yet. But when they make books, they tend to like reference those things quite a bit. Kind of like how, like, Morgar was a forgotten character from Beastmen that no one talked about for almost 3 years until the Beast of Chaos book came out, and all of a sudden they referenced him quite a few times when it came to the Gavespawn stuff, which is a super cool thing, like a throwback. Less than necessarily bringing the old character forward. Let's see here. Is there any chance at all that the Chaos deities could be defeated by the Order Death deities? Like at all? Alright, so I'm going to give you my theory on Chaos in the Realms. This is partially based on the Beast of Chaos book here. So, before the Chaos gods set their eyes on the mortal realms, Chaos existed here. The reason we know that is because Beasts of Chaos have always existed in the realms. They are almost like the yin to Order's yang, if you will. I think they're just part of the natural balance of things. Always trying to bring the warping powers of chaos into the realms. And all of that is 100% confirmed in their battle tome. No questions asked. That's just what it is. It's written out. It's fact. So people are trying to. There are scholars, quote unquote, in the books. They're trying to figure out why that is. And so one of the theories I like is that, like I just said, chaos as a force, as a realm, is just a natural yin yang to the moral realms, where they're about structure and cohesion, and obviously the realm of chaos is about anything but those things. As far as the actual chaos deities, which are just 4 specific beings that reside within the realm of chaos, they don't make up its entirety, but they are just a part of it. They're the 4 biggest bosses in there. Do I think they could ever be defeated? It's tough. Because if you, let's say they tackled, I don't know who would even fight first. I was trying to think, let's say they tackled one at a time, but how do you even fight one of these things? I don't know if they could ever be defeated, to be honest with you. Like, truly defeated. I think you're hard pressed to do that. Because what you'd have to do is not kill anyone to buff Khorne. Have to not let anyone get sick or depressed or full of despair, because that all buffs Nurgle. You'd have to not be self-indulgent in any way, because that would buff Slaanesh, and you can't use any kind of tricks or planning to do it, because that would buff Tzeentch. So you would need your entire population to become incredibly virtuous, kind, and clean, and full of hope suddenly without any planning. And that seems really rough to do. Yeah. And then, even if you did it, right, let's say you cut off the power source for the Chaos Gods, right? You still have to deal with the fact that Beastmen and those kinds of things, like Spawn and stuff, well, since they existed outside of those 4 entities, they're still running around. So you have to not only eliminate everything that would ever give a Chaos God power, but then eliminate all of the Children of Chaos. And I just don't think that's possible. I'm just going to throw it out there. Which I'm okay with, because I just got this army. Let's see here. We're going to do some washes. Aggregates. I went out to IKEA today and got a whole new rack for my paint, so I can do this a whole lot easier, but then didn't have time to set it up beforehand. Kenji says, Chaos Gods all have some root in goodness. They just take it to extreme. For example, change isn't always bad. Battle can be honorable. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. There is some aspect. The thing is like, I think that you are accurate in the sense that there's always going to be something that can buff them. The question is like, how much? Because you can starve them. I mean, please pronounce the name of that rack. I can't. It's like Dusseldorf or something ridiculous. my new paint rack, Bjorn. I'll get it, and then I'm just gonna always call him that. I'm not even gonna call it a paint rack. I'm just gonna I'll be like, Bjork, lend me your Seraphim Sepia, and Bjork will comply. If you don't know, IKEA, like, they have each piece of furniture has a unique name, and so I don't know. I love it. It was my first time going there today, and I was just like looking around, like, why is there a table named Korkoslav? And you're like, I don't get it. I mean, I name my furniture. I didn't think a store would. Whatever. These guys are weird. That's not true. They're lovely people. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, so I think you can still like reduce the Chaos God's power so that they're not a big threat like they are now. Which is an interesting thing. Like, I don't think we've ever seen a Chaos God's influence get reduced to the point where they're ineffective. But that'd be some fun narrative space to design for sure. Like, what if like Sigmar creates Purell and just distributes hand sanitizer. It's like, oh my god, Nurgle's plans are obliterated. Let's see here. Got I hope we get an Age of Destruction. I'm not basing this off of anything, but I sincerely hope that that's what 2019 is. It's a year, quote unquote, of destruction. I don't want to say like a year completely of destruction, because that would be really boring, quite frankly, like if no other faction got love. But I do think that, it looks like we're kicking it off with MoonClan Grotz on some level. That's kind of like the general wisdom and takeaway from that. So that would be amazing. Ironjaws were rumored to get some expansions, like another unit to join them. Haven't heard anything about that in several months, but that'd be kind of cool. Give me ogres any day of the week. I think we need some of those guys ASAP. Yeah, I agree. I want it to be the year of destruction for sure. And nothing else. I just want it to be the big bad. Like, if you haven't read the Realm Gate War series, not the campaign books like I reviewed on the channel, but the actual like novels. First of all, you don't have to go out and buy them. There's not a ton of lore that's like super mega hard hitting. It's fine. But the thing is, like, I was kind of uninterested in them until Gordrakk showed up. Once Gordrakk showed up on the scene, everything just got really fun, right? And that's kind of like the biggest thing. Just because he's so out there, like Sigmar sent an emissary to him to be like, hey, maybe we can parlay and work together. You represent Gorka Morka, I represent Sigmar, it's going to be awesome. And then Gordrakk takes an axe and cuts the dude straight clean in half, top to bottom. And I was just like, why don't we have more of this? Like, why don't we have more books about orc diplomacy? That's the greatest thing. Let's see here. Question, can Kane come back to life since worship of him is coming back? So it would affect the warp in that way. So, spoiler alert if you are a Daughters Kane person or looking at the army. So, there exists a single fragment of Kane, the elven god of war and bloodshed. And Morathi has it. It's the heart of Kane. It's her most sacred thing. And basically what she does is she created a religion based around Kane, worshiping him. However, she siphons off all that power. Her ultimate goal is to become a god based on that power. She's kind of absorbing it into herself. So to answer your question, can Kane come back? Technically, it is possible. However, Morathi will not allow it. And would it affect things? Well, we don't really have the warp in AOS so much anymore. That kind of lore has kind of evolved past us. But I think it would definitely affect the universe for sure. And it's certainly not certainly it would affect the Pantheon if Kane came back, because he's much more of a violent creature than any of the ones we've seen so far. Even Gorka Morka does it for sport, but Kane is like a murder god. Let's see here. Sandy McDonald, what is the biggest threat to humanity in 40k? Tyranids or chaos? It's just all bad. I don't think there is a biggest threat. I mean, because the way they pose things, everything in their books is so dramatic. If you pick up anything that's not an Imperium book, it's always the worst threat. Like Tyranids are consuming, they're coming from a billion different directions. Orcs, if they ever unified, could destroy the entire galaxy. Genestealer cults are the enemy within. They kind of fit the Tyranids. I think the only ones that are not in contention for universal domination are like Tau, because they just don't have light travel or faster than light travel. Or warp travel, I'm sorry. They do go a little faster than light. So, there's that. I think everything sucks. Everything sucks and is bad in 40k. Let's see here. Why not just eat the heart of Kane? I don't know. It's made of iron. I think it's probably a good start. It's described as an iron heart. Question, do you have a favorite piece of orc fluff or lore? Mine is the piece where the orc lord is depressed that someone ate his favorite Gretchen. My favorite thing in the Ironjawz battle tome is they come across a giant fortress dedicated to Archaon, and what they do is they basically desecrate it, in quotes, and then kind of guff up the face so it looks like a giant orc. So it's Archaon statue with an orc head. And so Archaon sees that and is like, no, this can't stand. So someone needs to go rebuild this fortress, defend it, and go kill those Ironjaws. And so they do it. They fix the big statue to Archaon and make it all look nice. And then the Ironjaws come back and do it again, but the second time they put a Gretchen head where Archaon's supposed to be, which is, of course, to them very insulting. And then Archaon gets mad, and the third time they just tear it down, I believe. So like they kept making this like super funny obelisk to Archaon insulting him. I just absolutely thought that was hilarious. Where it's just like, and every time they come through, they always destroy whatever forces are defending the place and just totally wreck their day. Let's see here. Kane versus Khorne, who would win? I don't know, man. They're both kind of... Kenzie raises a good point. Kane died once. Has anyone ever gotten close to killing Khorne? No, the closest person who ever got to killing Khorne was Scarbrand, who put all his fury and power into an axe blow, and all it did was chip Khorne's armor. So, yeah. That's a good point. That's actually a really good point, Kenzie. I didn't think about that. I was gonna debate a little bit, and I was like, no, that's actually the right answer. You just use a little bit of backwards logic and be like, yeah, clearly Khorne's at least been doing it longer. It's interesting though. We see when you're looking at the lore, it seems like the Chaos Gods have so much more power individually, even though there's only 4.5 of them. The Great Horned Rat still ascending in power. Again, I only say he's not a full Chaos God because we haven't been shown lore-wise what that looks like. I'm sure they've said very clearly he's one of the Chaos Gods, so we're going to say 5. But we don't know what that means yet as far as him and what powers him up and how that looks in the battlefield. Yeah, so I don't know. So they seem to have a lot more power individually, whereas the gods for order don't seem to have as much power as a Chaos God. I don't think, when Sigmar was kicking tail in the Age of Myth, or beginning of Age of Chaos, end of the Age of Myth, he was still just fighting mega demons, huge, huge demons, but they never fought the gods. I think that's important. I think it's important when we think about scale. So to our questions earlier, I do think it's important that you'd have to find some way to cut off what feeds a god and strike its minions down to be able to do something to it. Also, I'm just throwing this out here. I just got some Rise of Rust this weekend for the first time. Favorite paint ever. Let's see here. Question: who do you think would win out of the Great Horned Rat and Slaanesh? Well, right now, Great Horned Rat's not chained up in the middle of nowhere, so I'm going to assume he would win. But your second point is interesting. I always kind of saw an element of Slaanesh in the nature of Skaven, in that their numbers are so excessive. So here's the thing, very interesting. I'm going to chat on this for a while, and it kind of feeds into getting back to our main topic of talking about Slaanesh. A point was made in a 40k book. I actually think it was the Battle Tome for 40k demons, where all of the Chaos Gods, so Tzeentch, Khorne, and Nurgle, when they consider Slaanesh, become very weirdly apprehensive. And the reason is they understand that their obsession with their specific thing, so Khorne's obsession with murder, bloodshed, rage, Tzeentch with change and magic and that kind of stuff, and Nurgle with despair and disease, they all actually inadvertently feed Slaanesh. Which when I read that, was the first time I had ever read it, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Because that means Slaanesh is unique in another way, where it's not just a specific human-ish thing that feeds them, but the obsession of his enemies themselves. If anyone is too obsessed with defeating Slaanesh, they're empowering him. And that just seems so game winning. And I absolutely fell in love with it at that point. I just think that is the coolest stinking thing. The idea, and that's kind of plays into like when I think Slaanesh does come free, whenever that does happen narratively, I think it's going to be a really big deal. And I think that's why, as a character, Slaanesh has the potential to really rock the overall narrative. Not necessarily because, you know, his powers are the best, or like that, like narratively speaking. I don't think anyone's ever hinted at Slaanesh being the strongest. It's usually Khorne or Tzeentch or Nurgle. But that he's going to be the most enduring in the sense that when you see chaos versus chaos armies, and one of those sides is Slaanesh, like actively in the battle, as Khorne heroes are enjoying winning, they're still feeding the Slaanesh troops, and I just love that stuff. I love it. The idea that you can't not buff Slaanesh because even your desire to win is used against you. It's just so stinking cool. Right now I'm just doing a little bit of Rise of Rust to all the weapons to kind of make them pop a little bit. Pre-identification. These prison restraints are too excessive. Slaanesh powers up. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That exactly. I don't know if it'll be that extreme, but it'll be fun. I love that kind of stuff, though. I mean, just the idea when you think about using even just people's pursuits of nobility against them, that kind of, and you get into that level of like thought, it's like, man, that's deep. That's hard to handle. Which again brings us back to like, how do you even stop doing those things? Let's see here. So I'm actually getting pretty close to being done with this unit. I'm very pumped about it. I haven't decided what I want to do for bases. The design is loosely based on let's see here, Brayher. I'm trying to think of the Great Fray. The Great Fray. That was the thing I was looking for. Great Fray from Haish from a light, but there wasn't really a good basing tutorial for that, and I refuse to use the Shadow Dominion bases ever again. Not my favorite. Someone says grassland bases. Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and hose the entire base green. Do some green flock. Oh, man. No, I want to do something a little bit different than that. Not sure how hard, like, crystal and that kind of stuff would be, but I don't know if I want to do that. Or I could do, like, I really like the way Mark, or Rerolling Ones, did his, where it's like a... He did like almost like shattered pieces of concrete or something like that. It's cool looking stuff. Let's see here. Okay. Is anyone... let's see here. Can you have vampires who worship chaos deities? I imagine... That's a good one. First of all, it's a good question. To be honest with you, I don't see any lore basis for it now, since all vampires seem to have some kind of death magic imbued in them, and then Nagash kind of ultimately can control that. You know, on that note, I would eventually, I think a design space that I would love to go to at some point is cross Grand Alliance factions. I think humans make the most sense because we've already seen humans that love and serve Nagash. I think that would be a great entry point to that idea. But yeah, I think that would be a really cool thing, that we could have factions that were like just worship more than one deity, or not just one deity, but could represent that as far as like different armies. Like I would love, you know, don't even call it free people. Just be like, this is the humans book, and the humans can be from anywhere, and the humans can worship you know, any one of these deities or with that. And so I don't know, I think that'd be kind of cool. Okay, I think it looks good. All right, what are we at? Hour and 24. Okay. Question: how would destruction humans fit? Well, I think our best insight we get to that, if you ever get some time, check it out. I did a video on Gur, which is the realm of beasts. And the thing is that Gur is destruction, and destruction is Gur, in my opinion. As far as what the humans are like there, they are super tribalistic, very nomadic, because the land changes around them. Hunting would obviously be the most important thing for a destruction army, because you have to focus on killing other things, being the top of the food chain. It would definitely affect your architecture, because everything has to be light and movable. So there's a few historical tropes you could play on there if you're looking to design models for them. I don't know, the humans in Gur Gur is my favorite realm to learn about, just because it gave you a lot of insight into like how the economy works. Like, hey, having people in Gur is super important. Why? Because they supply meat, and meat is more rare in certain parts of other realms, and so they kind of are important to keeping the war effort going. And KO ships will come in and take large hauls of meat and go deliver it. I just love that kind of stuff. So that would be my human destruction faction, is people who just highly nomadic, thrive on hunting, being primal in that sense. I don't think they'd be as good at killing and destruction as similar factions, to be honest with you. I'm not saying they're top of the food chain, I just think that they would fit in pretty well with that kind of stuff. The problem is, at a certain point, some kind of destruction can kind of look like chaos, where, you know, I mean, the question is, why are you destroying this thing? Instead of if you are or not. You know what I mean? Because like when I read about orcs destroying something, it can be described as chaotic, because it is chaotic, but it's not chaos in the sense of like the big bad boogeyman of AOS and 40k kind of chaos, right? Capital C chaos. Let's see here. You can get some Dark Oath guys. They're pretty destruction looking. Yeah, they are. Looking good. I'm excited for them. Okay, enough for the Rise of Rust. What do I got left? So this is, if you haven't noticed my system, kind of how I do my speed painting is I get a mat like this where I can work, and I do line up all my dudes on one side. Well, actually, first I start off by painting a tester model. So I painted one guy to completion, and so he's sitting there looking good. And then put him right in front of me. And then basically pick up a unit, paint one thing like the base color here, set them over there, and then basically just do it's like a painting in blocks, painting all those things to the other side, and then do the same thing with the next thing. So maybe I'll paint the metals, then I'll go back here and paint the wood, then I'll do the leather, and that kind of stuff, and just keep going back and forth. They're almost done. I mean, the skin looks great. These are definitely tabletop quality. I need to do hooves. That's what I need to do. I started doing them last time and then hit a bunch of points where stuff wasn't painted. Okay, this is a great question. Pokemon style battle. Who would win, a Nurgling or a Brimstone Horror? They're so similar. They're both playful and mean, and my money is on a Brimstone Horror. That's, without really any explanation, that's what I'm going to go with. Let's see. I'm gonna post these on Instagram. Yeah, I'm trying to get more into posting on Instagram. I'm not naturally a social media person, but I also understand that it seems like the most of the human race, or at least this hobby, is. So I'm trying. It's actually hard for me to remember to do that. Like I'll take pictures of stuff and then just forget to post it. Which is also why I forget to put out notifications about what's going on with shows and what's coming up, that kind of stuff. I just tend to forget. He already has hooves. No, does he? Nope. Oh man, we're busting out the subtleties of Nurgling and Zinch Pokemon types. Let's see here. As far as other stuff I want to talk about, I don't think I had anything else on Slaanesh. Just very excited to see where they go. Excited to have a full set of Chaos Gods once that and the Great Horn Rat is released. I am going to try to at least get the book for Wrath and Rapture and do any kind of lore coverage there is on there and do a Slaanesh video. But other than that, I'm not quite sure if anything new really came out. I haven't heard anything particularly exciting. Nothing was announced about, at least to me so far, about Slaanesh actually being actively free and prancing around. One thing I am excited about, though, just kind of finished up my thoughts on Slaanesh, is for the same reason I was very excited about the book City of Secrets. If you haven't read that one, it takes place in a very specific city in Age of Sigmar lore, where the machinations of Zinch have kind of infiltrated government and religion and all that stuff like that. The reason I say that is because I loved my favorite books from the old world were the Sundering, which was the fall, basically the civil war with the elves. I'm sorry, and the reason I like it is because you saw the civilization falling to what they called pleasure cults. So just pleasure cults weren't necessarily just all sexual in nature, but they were definitely all hedonism in different ways, like whether it be murder or rituals or anything like that. Just different ways of getting exactly what you want. And it just crippled a society from the inside out. And that's the kind of lore that I want to read. I want to read about super relatable human civilizations where something terrible gets into that system and it just corrupts it from the inside out. That's super cool lore. I want to read about that. Thanks, Marathi. Yeah, I know, right? Thanks a lot. That's okay. She got what she deserved. I'm gonna redact that. Actually, I don't know if anyone deserves that. Question: was Alariel ever into that pleasure cult stuff? No. None of her folks ever were. No, and that stuff that turned down that road is what kind of divided, or at least started to divide the race. Ultimately, it was Malekith trying to usurp the throne that kind of sealed the deal. But no, not initially. Alariel got really into gardening. Yes, she had some rough years and then decided to become an old woman and just really focus on those rosebuds. But yeah, so I mean, it was great. If you haven't read it, the Sundering, and none of that lore is the lore is all still valid, but it's all old world stuff. It's not current, but it is one of the coolest series. I really love the first book in that, where they talked about they had a debate about, basically a political debate erupted into all-out civil war, and then it was like, oh wait, we're not just having a governmental dispute. Marathi's bringing in Slaanesh pleasure cults and corrupting people from the inside out, and everyone's all of a sudden super evil and just explodes into something much more than anyone was anticipating. That's the kind of stuff that Slaanesh brings into society, where it's everything's fine. It's super fine. And then all of a sudden there's just anarchy and murder and blood in the streets. And I don't know. That kind of stuff's cool to me. The escalation that Slaanesh can insidiously bring into a society is far more interesting than some of the other ones. And I think part of it is, this is actually from the Independent Characters podcast. We were talking about Slaanesh, where the host, Carl Tuttle, had said, and I've this really stuck with me, where he said, like, when you're reading the stories about, like, corn cults or Nurgle ones or even Tzeentch ones, like, sometimes it can be hard to understand why a person who isn't a part of that would join. Like, why would you willingly join a corn fight club or a Nurgle disease clinic? Or, the Tzeentch one kind of makes sense because he can target people who are intelligent, seeking more forbidden knowledge. I get that one. But, like, it's not hard at all for me to imagine why someone would join a Slaanesh cult. You know what I mean? And part of it is personal pleasure and hedonism, but also another one is because I want to be the best at blank. So, it sounds so understandable to me that, like, I think the cities that we've seen being built over the last several books and really the last year and a half of lore could all potentially be hotbeds for Slaanesh activity. And that's just so cool to me that, like, it's so insidious that, like, the disease anti-clinic. Yes, exactly. Let's see here. Anonymous sake. Speaking of the books and Swedish again, does anyone know why they have an English-speaking actor in the audio drama consistently pray to Sigmar in Swedish? I don't. Probably for the same reason they inexplicably have all the corn dudes be Russian. Blood for the blood god. And he just kind of goes, like, full... Is it Ivan Drago or whatever like that from Rocky? They're all lining up to impress Archeon. He's just like, I must break you. And they just kind of go nuts. I don't know. I noticed that when I was listening to the Call of Archeon series, where it's just like, why is this guy from Soviet Russia? It was so heavy. That's right. Okay, I did see a few pieces where this is the thing about speed painting. I will talk about in the video where I fully cover it, but basically I don't go back and paint every detail. I get most of the stuff done and then just double check during a final count to make sure everything's painted. Making sure everyone's tablet is painted. Nope, that's silver. Good. Bueno. Needs to be painted. Sweet. Opa. Let's see. Don't talk about Corn Club. Exactly. Has 40k lore progressed since that Eldar death deity chose a representative? Technically, yes. So that happened at the very end of the last edition. And since then, the fall of Cadia happened, which... when that happened, it literally tore a line in the universe, basically, in the Milky Way galaxy. And the setting that we're currently in for 40k now has, what do they call it? The Imperium is split into two parts, and I can't remember the name of them, but it's in the core book. But there's just a few stable ways to get from one half of the Imperium to the other. So, yeah, there's quite a bit that happened. Not much fundamentally. I mean, like, Reboot Gilman came back for the Ultramarines. That's pretty much it. It has not been the most dynamic when it comes to changes. I think because people were so afraid of, like, oh my god, they changed so much for AOS. Are they going to do the same thing for 40k? And they didn't. They played it safe. Which I'm fine with. Imperium Nihilus, that's what it was. Thank you all for joining in there. But yeah, I got split in two, and things are not doing so good. The current thing that they're doing, and they're releasing books for it right now, is that one of the super safe and stable places to get from one half of the Imperium to the other across that big line of warp tear or whatever like that is a planet called Vigilus. And it's exactly why it's important. It's a stable transport route, and it has been under attack from everything, basically. The Speed Freaks box brought orcs to the planet. The Kill Team box had Gene Stealer cults on it. The Eldar and Ultramarine box that I can't think of the name for also was taking place on Vigilus, and so that's why their newest campaign supplement is taking place on that planet as well, to kind of fill in that story. So yeah, it is a hotbed of activity. Question. This might be too much, but you ever thought doing lore videos and sort of stuff on lesser chaos gods and deities like Mermitas, Hashut? I don't know any of those. I'm going to be honest with you. Don't know any of them. They haven't popped up in the AOS books, and I don't know them. What I will ask you is, are they from the old world? Because the old world had referenced a lot more of the lesser gods. Rest in peace, Chaos Dwarves. They're still around. They're the Legion of Asgore. What I will say is there are other gods besides the four major chaos gods, because the Khorne, Tzeentch, Slaanesh, Nurgle, and even the Great Horn Rat are all just the four big ones in the realm of chaos, but they're not. That's not it. No, they don't embody all of it. So, yeah. Let's see here. I hope at some point to start playing Total War. I have to get a new video card for the computer to kind of keep up with it, but that's the only thing I need. Then I can actually start streaming that stuff too, which I think will be fun. Okay. Hashut is the Chaos Dwarf god. Okay. That makes more sense. No, I didn't do that. And I hadn't heard of that. But the thing is, I really wish Forward World came out. Like, they just put one writer from GW to be like, hey, put out 2 pages of story for the dudes from Forge World. Like, give me a reason to buy Chaos Dwarves and what's the other one? Turmeric and Horde. Oh my gosh, I had a brain fart of the ages there. You know, give me a reason to buy those things narratively. Put something in there for them. I think that would be super important. All those things need to dry. I mean, I've been tempted to look at the Chaos Dwarf stuff, but man, I mean, with the way I hobby swap and army jump, the idea of spending that much money in an army is just like, ugh. I know myself. Question, you ever check out Vermintide 2? I played it for about 2 minutes at Jack's house. I had a fun time. I don't remember what faction I was playing. I think I was a dwarf with a crossbow or something ridiculously cool like that. So that'd be kind of fun to play. I think all those games, I do want to get a video card and start streaming. I don't want to become a video game channel by any stretch, but I think, I don't know, it'd be cool to do that kind of stuff. And have myself playing some nerd games, hanging out with Warhammer people. I do want to play, what is it? Chaos Bane, the new, like, where it's a Diablo-esque thing. I think would be really, really cool, set in the old world, where you're like going through a dungeon. It's funny, I don't like dungeon games when I'm playing like in person, but I don't mind them on a computer. But yeah. Okay, I just need to do some highlights on this skull stuff. So I think we'll do the skull stuff and then call it a night after that. At that point, pretty much it'll be virtually done, at least done enough to put on the tabletop. It's at this weird stage where, like, the models are done, but you won't see their true potential until I change the bases, because the bases are so similar to what the models themselves actually are. But I think they're going to be good. Question: how necessary do you find Xandri dust as a base coat for lighter bone textures? I based with a Shopti bone on my death card and trying to find. Yeah. You don't need it by any stretch. I think Steel Legion Drab is another great base paint for a myriad of purposes. It's not super necessary. I just like it sometimes, just because I don't have to worry about doing multiple coats. I mean, GW will tell you to go buy every paint on the rack, but you don't have to do that. For the most part, for the most part, I find it depends on what you use for a primer or your base color is. So if I'm doing black, I definitely want like a Xandri dust or a Steel Legion Drab underneath it. But this Brent, when he painted these, he primed them this kind of red, warm, sandy brown, which was perfect because it meant that you don't have to do a whole lot to get the warmer colors of the bone in looking good. Part of the nice thing, though, about doing like Xandri dust is because this way, if you do a Shopti bone and then you miss some of the tighter details, like in corners and cracks and crevices, it still looks painted. It just looks like it has a nice shadow, so it's kind of a nice... Actually, I'm throwing that brush away. It's got like a weird hair thing going on. Here we go. Okay. Let's see here. Michael Hammond, your favorite bone color is Flayed One Flesh. I have actually never painted with Flayed One Flesh. I will have to check that one out. I try not to paint a ton of bone color just because, I don't know, I'm not very good at it. Brent is exceptional at painting a nice crisp. There's actually some model here that has a skull that he actually painted. It looks phenomenal. Just the way he does highlights is great. But it probably took him 12 years, so I don't know. Okay. Pretentification, definitely my favorite Warhammer YouTuber. I was stoked when I got here before stream. Good luck. Oh, you have a good night, man. We'll talk to you soon. Yeah, I am probably wrapping up here pretty soon, just because you kind of reach that point where everything just needs to dry. I gotten pretty good in my time painting, where I've gotten really good about, like, I'll paint this because that way it'll give me time to do something else on the other side of the model, or you know what I mean, that kind of stuff where you're really good at time management. Man, there's just some times where everything just needs to stop and dry. Plus, these guys are looking pretty tasty. They're looking pretty good. Hopefully they'll be on Reeling 1 soon, though everyone's kind of taking a break for the winter. We'll see how quickly that happens. Okay. If you have not checked it out yet, I had a great time filming the battle report that went up think it was just yesterday. My goodness, it was just yesterday. Where I played Mark. I tried out the Magotkin rules for the first time. That was an absolute blast. Didn't end up like using a ton of them, the rules, because I didn't need to necessarily, but they were super fun. They kind of re-solidified my idea of doing like the one army that can be anything, just to do that kind of stuff. But basically, I stick my full Slaves to Darkness horde menagerie of craziness and slap some Feculent Narmaz on the table and what was his name? Harbinger of Decay, to give everyone a 5-up. Save after the save, basically disgustingly resilient. Oh, so beautiful. Let's see here. For now, I'm getting a lot done on my Cellstar Ballista, and then it's time to finally start painting heroes. Yeah, so Jack from Rolling Ones is he's painting all of his Stormcast, which has traditionally been his tournament army, and they look awesome. He's cranking through. He might actually be done with his Cellstar Ballista. I'm not sure if he's still watching, but yeah, he was doing the same things. He takes a battalion that I do not know the name of, where it also has Castigators. I think they are the shooting unit that no one seems to like for some reason. He gets some pretty good mileage out of him. So, well, out of the battalion that requires him at least with that. Okay, that's coming together. It don't look so bad. Greetings from Finland. Finally got a weekend and some time to do some hobby. Currently painting Tree Revenants, and they're great fun to paint. I bet they are. Tell me what, 6-gunner 86. How many trees do you have? How many tree bases do you have? I was kind of curious, like, how many of the actual Sylvaneth wildwoods, does a Sylvaneth player actually need? That's the thing. Like I was talking about doing the Magotkin stuff, and I was like, the thing that always held me back from Magotkin was I don't want to go buy 3 or 4 Feculent Narmals, and then someone was like, you don't need that many. Just don't summon them, or don't worry about the contagion points. Like, just don't use that mechanic. It's fine. I was like, oh. Yeah, I guess that is an option. I think we actually had that as a question at one point. Someone was like, oh, the reason he didn't want to play a demon army was because, or he didn't want to play any of the chaos armies, because now they're all doing summoning stuff. He's like, I don't want to go out and have to buy a whole bunch of models. And someone was like, well, why don't you just go buy one Great Unclean One and just save up to do that? And like, you'll do it. You'll get enough points, but at that point, you won't have to like go buy a whole like Nurgle cohort just to do it. I was like, yeah, that's a pretty solid. It's a pretty solid idea. Mm-hmm. So many skulls. Okay. Cascaders are not liked because they get one shot with their crossbows. Even on primes, they do a doozy on Chaos and Night Hunt. Yes. Yeah, that's what Jack said too, that they were kind of released as a way to be thematic and fun with the Soul War set, but beyond that, they're not everyone's favorite, which is true. And if you're going to a tournament, you want to build armies for consistency, not have like, oh, this one unit is super good against this one enemy. I get that. Let's see here. Just out of curiosity, since we still have 34 people watching, is anyone here going to, or planning to go to the Nova Open 2019? Give you a second to reply. There's sort of a delay. Six Gunner replied to me. Just started my Sylvaneth army and have 3 Wildwoods. Awesome. Yeah, I don't know, like, so there's been this trend with their game designers lately of like including terrain and summoning and everything with AOS, it seems like. And I'm just not sure how I feel about it. Like, I sincerely believe that there's no reason Beast of Chaos should have summoning. The mechanic, it just seems clunky, kind of bolted on. I wish it kind of wasn't there. Leave summoning to be unique for chaos armies or demon armies, that kind of stuff. I don't know. Sam Cook, I'm planning on going. I live in the area. Sweet. It was my wish to do more hobby traveling this year, and then some things came up early in the year, but I do want to go to the Nova Open. I do want to go to be a part of that narrative event. So I sent the guys there an email asking for more information about travel because they haven't really updated their website for 2019 yet, which is fair because I kind of just finished the last one. But, if you're traveling, you need to start planning ahead for that kind of stuff. So I had a few questions and was asking if there's any way I can join in and help and that kind of stuff. So I'm very, very pumped. Let's see here. So my plan is to really focus on the Beast of Chaos. If I need to take a break just to keep my sanity, I'll probably paint my Servants of the Abyss kill team for kill team 40k. And then after that, jump into some Necrons from the Forgebane set, of which I suddenly became an owner of 2. And then I went out and bought, what are they called? The city bases that GW made for 40k. Because when I bought the sets, they didn't have any bases. So I was like, oh, I could do that. I could splurge on that. Get some nice bases, so. Yep. I think it'll be good. Justin in the chat can show me the ropes when it comes to Necron. How to kick teeth and lose friends with Necrons. But I think for the most part, I'm going to try and focus more on AOS lately. Kind of had a slump there. I don't know if you've been watching the channel where it just happened where I just got a lot more 40k games in. So I'm one of those people that I find if I stop playing a game, I lose interest in it. And not that I lose interest, but I struggle to keep my enthusiasm. It's probably a better way to say it. And so I started to kind of slip into that a little bit. But then after games like where we did Iron Jaws versus Iron Jaws, and then the other night where we did Magakin, or Slaves to Darkness, but with Magakin rules versus Escape, those are so fun. It just reminds me why I'm having fun. So, let's see here. And I tend to enjoy the rule set for AOS far more than 40k. Let's see here. Christmas is a tempting time for wargamers. Ended up ordering a Daughters of Cain Battle Force box and some other Daughters of Cain stuff. That's awesome. What an awesome army to jump into. That was the only thing that keeps me from jumping into that army is the same reason that I can't jump into a Forge World army, where it's like the price tag is just so high for a box of girls, like the simple Daughters of Cain witch elves up there. Then I'm just like, I don't want to spend that money on them and then be myself in 2 weeks and be like, hey, I traded off the Daughters of Cain after dumping serious amounts of cash into them because I know myself. So, but I'm really happy for you, man. That sounds awesome. Let's see here. Speedy Savant says, hello, AOS friends. Been watching a long time, but this is the first team I've been able to catch. Awesome, awesome. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to hop off here in just a couple minutes. I tried to announce it early enough, give everyone an hour notice or so. But if you want to catch the next time I do it, I think I'm going to try and make Friday nights a pretty regular thing. This 9-ish to 11-ish time frame, I think kind of works for me and my schedule. When it comes to live streams, it's just about consistency, trying to find a time that like just works. This is pretty consistent for me. As far as why I like AOS more than 40K in terms of a rule set, I just think there's a lot. The thing is, part of it's fair and part of it's not. The unfair part is that AOS does not have things like transports or flyers outside KO who have their rules specifically listed on them. And so part of it is like there's just fewer things going on that need to be managed, and so it makes it a simpler game experience. And that does matter. So yeah, I think that's a huge deal and a big aspect of it. But I think another thing is just I also think that AOS has used more design space and better writing when it comes to, like, I think battle tomes are better than codexes almost universally in terms of they get you excited for an army, they have really flavorful thematic rules, and part of that is because of the way that 40K works, where you can take just a detachment of something and mix those armies together much more fluidly than AOS. I don't know. I just think because of that, AOS armies are better than 40K armies in the way that they're presented and the way they function. So yeah. Kenzie, question. With writing a narrative campaign myself, should I get a narrative stuff coming out for 40K even if I'm writing for AOS? I have no idea what's coming out for 40K. Like, I know the Vigilus campaign stuff's coming up. I don't know what that entails as far as like campaign building. They do have a video going this week about making missions. Excuse me, hiccups are killing me. And I think that might help, but yeah, I'm not sure, because they don't just have the Vigilus thing coming out. They also have this thing where you're like fighting in a city that might be cool. But again, I have no idea how that functions on its own. They didn't send me any advanced copies of any of that stuff. Let's see here. Which I'm okay with, because I just don't do 40K enough to really break those in and kind of give a good explanation. 686. Yes, I am painting Beastman. I am doing a Beast of Chaos army to complement my Slaves to Darkness. And so I have the start collecting box, about 30 or so gore. What else do I have? Got a whole bunch of stuff, man. Herdstone sitting there. I had to write narrative campaign for the game store I work at for 40K, and I borrowed many things from Sigmar. Yeah, honestly, the main difference is when you're talking about like how narrative campaigns rules and bonuses and stuff like that work. Honestly, like with the exception of like weapon and ballistic skill being like replaced with static numbers like they are in AOS, like to hit is always this, blah blah blah. Most of the mechanics, they cross over pretty stinking well. And so I think it makes it super easy to steal ideas from one book. I think the General's Handbook far exceeds the chapter approved when it comes to creating narrative stuff. However, this chapter approved coming out, the stuff they previewed is definitely more focused on narrative things rather than simply matched play fixes, which I feel like the last one was. So we will see. Let's see here. Elf is a Cave Spawn Great Fray. Yes. Yes, these are the ones that if a hero dies on a 2-up, they turn into a spawn, which sounds awesome. And right up my alley. is a man who is obsessed with Spawn. Let's see here. If you can find the original General's Handbook from AOS, buy it. It had a delightful table for narrative mission. Do you mean the campaign thing that had, like, if game A goes this way, go to mission B? I'm kind of curious. Because a lot of that stuff they reprinted, but kind of put it in a different format in the current one. We'll review it in another video, but yeah, the tools they give you to make cool missions in the current, I should say, General Handbook is pretty sweet. Merchant Prince, can you combine the Grave Spawn, Pestilence Throng to get mortal wounds on a death plus the spawn? Yes, you can. So how that works, and exactly what I plan to do, is load up on heroes, have a few be debuffing Bray Shaman, and then a few that are just super cheapest chips. Beast Lords loaded up with artifacts that do a lot of damage. And then have the Beast Lords charge in. So basically what happens with the Nurgle battalion is that if a unit is destroyed in my army, I roll a dice for each enemy unit in 7 inches, and on a 2+, they take a mortal wound. So you run your hero straight into as many units as possible, assuring their death. They tie up several units in combat so that they're kind of stuck where they are. And he dies, like he does, hopefully taking someone out with him. But when he dies, a spawn then erupts in his place. Now, it's important to note that that spawn is not part of the battalion, because he's not part of the units who take in it. So when he dies, he does not generate a mortal wound. But at that point, you've had a hero go up, kick everyone in the teeth really hard. It died, gave a mortal wound out, and now you have a spawn there tying everyone down for an additional turn. So that's kind of the awesome flux that you get with those two things combined. So I think that's why the Nurgle one is like 200 points. A little more pricey than the other battalions. But it's definitely what I'm going for. Because fundamentally what you're paying for is, just a couple mortal wounds here and there on an army that doesn't have a ton of mortal wound output. So it's very important to have. And then also make it spawn everywhere. Getting free units at a spawn. Just having a lot of laughs. Let's see here. It's amazing to think in AOS lore how they have so many aspects of nature, as Sylvaneth and Nurgle are kind of faces of the same coin. Absolutely. I think it is super, super cool. Kenzie, I'm glad you're doing a video on the topic. Kind of shaky on putting down the actual nitty-gritty missions. Got background, but a hard time deciding missions. Yep, I'm going to review that. I'm probably not going to touch on having one game affect the next a ton, because that has the potential to get very wonky very quickly, as if one person keeps winning. But definitely creating isolated narrative missions that tell a story. If you look at the current General's Handbook, they break down like some kind of siege at Guran or whatever like that into a series of narrative games. They don't tie into each other. They're just a bunch of snapshots of a war, and I think that's kind of cool. I think that's definitely the way to start. And it's super easy to do. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see. Get this all touched up a smidge. I think that banner's looking good. Okay, we have him to paint. We have him. At this point, I'm kind of just doing my last little touch-ups. Him. Okay. Working on a Nurgle war shrine with a big cauldron. Might even have a dryad dissolving it. That sounds awesome. You should definitely do that and send me pictures. I love really intuitive and crafty conversions like that, where you're just like, make this dude tell a story. Okay, well, he's cooking up some trees. He's having tree bark stew. I do dream of a day at one point in my life where I have a fully converted army, but I haven't found something enough that I love that like I want that. You know what I mean? Maybe one day it'll happen. Maybe I'll just have an all spawn army for reasons. Are you going to use resin to make it look like it's melting in there? Oh, I'm asking about the cauldron. Yeah, man, that'd be awesome. All right. Well, friends, with this guy drying actively, I think I'm going to just about call it a night because my voice is going a little hoarse if you can't hear me. What I will say is if you have any more questions, I would love to hear them and love to answer them. Please go to the link in the description down below and it'll have like a questionnaire type thing. You can just drop the question in there and I will answer it in the next show. I try to open up with questions. I didn't have any stored up this time, so I'll pass on that. Look forward to two very fun videos coming out this week. Let me swap here 1 second. There we go. Look forward to two super fun videos this week, specifically regarding building campaign missions or narrative missions specifically, and also some fun introductions to what I'm doing with Beasts of Chaos, and there's something else really cool. What else am I doing? There was one other thing. I keep all my notes for my videos online. Let's see what else I was going to talk about. Oh, speed painting. Yeah. Doing a video covering how I get through speed painting a ton of models and do it hyper efficiently rather than speedy and sloppy. So that's what's going on with me. And I look forward to seeing you all this week. Like I said, ask any questions you have at the link down below. Thank you so much for doing my little hobby hangout, and I look forward to doing this. Let's just plan on next week, same time, 9 o'clock, and I'll make a big deal about it this week, and I will talk to you all then, if not sooner. Y'all have a good night. Bye-bye.